you manage your own, and if you manage your own cash flow, I'm going to ask you to share, what do you do to ensure that you're not spending more money in your business than you're supposed to? So what things do you do? And I want you to type it into the chat, because I'm going to share this with the group, because I'm going to share a couple of examples that we do in my business. But before I do that, so you can type in your answers so long, and then I'll be able to respond to them. But in 2008, we had a massive financial crisis. And, you know, when you have a financial crisis, and in our case, we had a lot of larger customers, you know, the likes of the Staples and Visas and things like that. And what they do, as soon as they assume that there is a problem coming, what they do, the first thing they usually cut back is cash flow. The first thing they cut back is marketing. And that is exactly what we were doing. At the time, we were creating content for a lot of these large companies. And so marketing was, you know, we were not an important expense in them. We were just a little line item. So it was very, very easy for them to stop buying from us. And what happens as a business owner when things like that happen, the first thing you do is you panic. And I think all of us are like that. And I don't think you change. You know, you panic and you start thinking, well, if you, like me, you go to bed at night thinking, how are you going to survive? How are you going to feed your family? You start doing that. But here's the thing that I've learned as a business owner: focusing on the problem doesn't help me. It really doesn't help me. But focusing on the solution helps me. And so that's when I started getting to work. And the first thing I did was I started creating a cash flow forecast that I updated every Friday. So every single Friday, I would update our cash flow forecast, because I knew that was the only way we were going to survive. Doesn't matter how smart we are, doesn't matter how brilliant we are. If we run out of money, we basically missed. So every Friday, I used to update cash flow forecast. The other thing I did is once a week, I would phone our receivables. So I'd phone our large clients that we were doing business with at the time. I would explain the situation, which really I didn't need to explain. They knew exactly what was going on. But following up became a more important thing. But the other little thing that I did, which I think is really smart, and if you're not doing this yet, you need to do it now, is on my bank statement, I created alerts. So I created alerts so that every single time money is spent, whether it's through the debit card, the credit card, or whatever it is, my bank sends me an alert, so I'm aware of it. And let me tell you what happens is once you start getting these alerts, you become really aware of how much money you're spending. So you become aware of it. The other thing we did is we spoke to all our employees, and I almost went through a process of educating them about managing their personal budgets and how it had a direct impact on our business. So that if we bought too much paper for the printer, for example, or if we used too much cleaning materials, or if we just left the lights on. And the way I educated them is not by speaking about us, but by speaking about them. You know, how do they deal with it in their house? So if, for example, all of a sudden they were earning, say, $5,000, and they weren't earning that, but let's say they were, and all of a sudden it came down to $3,000, how would they deal with that? And those are the type of things that we use. And I think that worked really, really well. But we survived. I mean, we survived. Actually, after that, we thrived. But I think it's because I was obsessive about cash flow. So if you want to learn anything from me today, is that make cash flow your problem, firstly. And secondly, update your cash flow regularly, on a regular basis. You know, you want to be updating your cash flow. Just be aware of what's going on in your business. Because if you're not, I promise you, if you just leave things for a couple of weeks because you're stressed and you don't have time for that financial stuff, it could have a major impact in your business. So that's the way we did it. Does anybody have any other ways that they manage their cash flow? Anything other that they do? Actually, let me go just back. Early on, I was saying to you that I taught my employees how to create budgets. but I've managed my life for the budget since the beginning. And I think it's out of, like anything, out of desperation. When you don't have money and you're in the startup phases of your business, you realize very, very quickly that if you're taking too much money out of your business, it has a major impact. So those are some of the ways, the very, very simple, practical ways. Create a budget for home, update your cash flow forecast regularly. And if you don't want to do it once a week, at least once a month, I would do that. Make sure that your employees understand, maybe set budgets for them, just so they have some clarity on the importance of that. And also educate them on, that we all in this together. I don't like that statement, but basically that is exactly what it is that when you're running a business and you've got employees and you're going through a really difficult time, you are all in this together. And I mean, I think as business owners, we're really struggling now with a couple of unique issues. One is obviously we can't get enough labor. And because we're small businesses, people would rather work for a larger company than a small business. Often larger companies pay more. But the other issue I think that is really, really challenging for me and for many business owners I've found over the last 5 or 6 months is mental health issues. These are, again, we've almost become counselors now. As business owners, we've become counselors. Not only do we have to now manage and lead, but we also need to counsel and support our employees because they're struggling with their mental health issues. So I think that's really, really important that you understand that. The other thing that you can do is, I think, get people around you, get other business owners around you to really help. One of the things that we used to do years ago, and this is when I was in retail, is if a store was struggling, what we'd do is we'd get a bunch of business owners together and we'd visit the store. We call it look and learn trips. We'd go and visit the store. And when we got to the store, what we'd do is we'd go through the store and try and identify for the business owner what they could do to improve their business. And I found that to be very, very effective for me. When you've got this peer learning, these other business owners that you've built a relationship with, that like, and trust, so like, and trust, they can help you. So this is a really good question. Sachi's just come online and said, why is cash flow so important in business? I missed out and just joined now. Well, the reason I think cash flow is so important is because if small businesses fail, 80% of the time, the reason they fail is because they run out of money. And I think that is really the thing that you need to understand, is that cash, especially in these times, I think, let's just go back to that statement I made earlier on about the rate of bankruptcies of businesses in Canada. On the one hand, it's really bad for businesses, but on the other hand, it's an opportunity. If you're trying to grow and scale your business now's an opportunity to buy some of these businesses that are going out of business. Unfortunately, somebody has to struggle for the other one to succeed. Well, not always, but in this case, that is exactly what's happening. So what have you done recently to improve your cash flow? I'm going to tell you what I've done recently to improve our cash flow is I've set budgets for every single month. I've been following up. But one of the challenges we have in our business is that we work with large corporations on the one side, but also government organizations. So what happens is that they have a tendency to pay late. And so it's really important that you follow up and never apologize for it. I never apologize for following up. So those are some of the things that I'm going to be doing this year is, more regularly looking at our receivables, making sure that we invoice on time and things like that. If I was in retail, some of the things that I would be doing is trying to find stuff that moves quickly. That's really what you want to be doing is you want to sell stuff that moves quickly. So you want to get fast stock turns is basically what you want to be trying to do. And JD says another way to help cash flow is to review expenditures. Absolutely. I've been saying that to business owners for the last 3 years. I've been saying, what I want you to do is I want you to print your bank statements out for the last 12 months. And I want you to go line by line, your bank statement and your credit card statement. And I want you to go line by line and see if there's stuff you can do without. It's a great recommendation, JD. And I agree with that 100%. Because the challenge is, and all of us are guilty of this, we'll have these little amounts, $12, $15, $30, whatever it is, coming out of our credit card every month that we just don't notice. And because we don't notice it, we don't deal with it. And those things add up. So great advice, JD. Thank you for that. Anybody else, if you want to share, feel free to do that. So what creates cash flow problems in our small business? The first thing is obviously that your sales are not high enough. And, as a business owner, I've got to spend a lot of my time selling. It's really, really important. And it's crazy that you need to remind yourself. But what happens is we almost go through these cycles, or I go through these cycles. We've got lots going on. We've got big projects going on. And because we've got big projects going on, we're not always out there selling. And the truth is that you've got to get out there and sell. For those of you that are retail businesses, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're on the shop floor as often as possible. Just be very, very careful of being too much, in the back. I still believe that nobody can sell as well as an owner. There's no doubt in my mind. Nobody can sell as well as an owner. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're out there in your store, selling, speaking to your customers, building those relationships, all of these things. Because, excuse me, people are hungry for this interaction. They haven't had it for a long time. And this is one of your competitive advantage. So Tracy says, I brought in items that were small and inexpensive and put them by the cash. Great idea. That's exactly what I'm thinking about, Tracy. And I used to do that for years as a retailer. And whether you're an online store and an offline store, you can do both. What you want to do is you want to try and find products that supplement. So at your cash desk, I think that's a brilliant idea. Don't stop doing that. Actually, I would go as far as saying, Tracy, really highlight those things, And I mean, the reality is that if any one of you do this, just do yourself a favor. Just go around wherever you're based, go around town, and look at some of the most successful businesses in your area. You will see when you get to the cash, whether it's your local successful coffee shop or your local bakery or your local grocery store, they always have items at the cash that they want you to buy, because they understand that, first of all, if I'm paying for something and I buy something extra, I mean, it's that old McDonald's model, you buy a burger and then get fries with that. It increases the sale per customer, firstly, and it increases your profit margin. So a great idea, Tracy, and something that any one of you can do. But you can do it on your e-commerce store too. Whatever you sell, people go through the store, and when they get to the cash, you can offer them something. I was using an example yesterday when I first arrived in Canada. I was buying my first pair of winter shoes. And I'll never forget this, actually, but it was a great example. And I spoke about this example for a few years. Went into the shoe store and I found the right pair of shoes. And when I go to the counter, this guy obviously saw a sucker coming. And excuse me. And he said to me, do you want a spray to protect your shoes? And I had no idea what a spray to protect my shoes mean. And so I thought, probably that's what people buy. So I bought the spray to protect my shoes. I don't think I used it more than once. But that was a really smart sale because it increased the cash flow. And more importantly, it increased the profit margin for that business. And those are the type of ideas that we want to come up with. So great idea. The other one is not collecting your money fast enough. One of the things that I think are really, really important in small business is collecting your money. But what happens sometimes is we create barriers. I mean, I don't know if you've had this, somebody comes and do work at your home and you say to them, can I pay with a credit card or email or whatever it is nowadays? There's so many different ways, and they can't help you. If you're selling a value-added item, an expensive item, there are so many services nowadays that you can use. I mean, I was saying to a group earlier on this week, when I was a kid, we were obviously poor, but we used to buy clothes over 6 months. That's how we do it. So I'd go to the store. I think it was called Team Dennis. I just remember it now. I don't know why. We used to go to the store called Team Dennis, and you'd buy stuff and you'd pay a fixed amount every month. And maybe, for some of your stores, if you're selling a thing at a premium, I think it could be a great opportunity. Tracy says, I quit my upgraded subscriptions and downloaded the free versions. Exactly. Those are the type of things you want to be doing. And like I mentioned earlier on, these things sound like small amounts, but they add up very, very quickly. So not collecting your money fast enough could be a problem. If your expenses are too high, and we've already dealt with that earlier on, is you want to go through that line by line item, every single item you want to go through and create budgets for yourself. I use this very, very simple example. Let's say you decide, actually Costco is a very good idea. Let's say you decide, I'm not encouraging you to buy at Costco, but you've heard all the stories about people that go to Costco to go get milk, and then they come out and they've spent $300. You've heard that story. But let's give you another scenario. Let's say I gave you $200. I said, go to Costco and you could only spend $200. What would happen is you'd probably stick within budget. That's what you do, because that's the amount of cash you have. And what happens often is if you don't give people budgets, especially if they're employees working for your business, it's not their money. You got to understand it's not their money. They've got no incentive at all to not spend the money, except when you give them a budget. For example, maybe you're working on projects or something. You say, you know what, when you stay in a hotel, you can't pay more than $200. When you go out for lunch, you can't spend more than $20, whatever it is. I don't even know what the numbers are anymore because I haven't traveled on business for a while. But the key thing is, if you do not set parameters, if you do not set guidelines, what happens is people overspend. And that goes for your sake and for you and for your business. The other thing you can do, for those of you that have an accountant, what you can ask your accountant to do is to calculate your ratios. So they go into your income statement and they calculate your ratios of expenses relative to your sales. And they can tell you more or less whether you're spending too much or too little. So let me give you an example. Often when people ask me, in retail, how much should I spend on marketing? And I will say 3 to 5% of revenue. Okay, so 3 to 5% of revenue. So if you're spending 6% or 7%, you got a problem. Your marketing's not working properly. So those are some of the things that you can start doing. So you control the expenses, which has an direct impact on your cash flow. Bad inventory management. I mean, I've just given you an example. You always think that inventory management is a small business issue. In the case of Walmart, it's become a big business issue. What happened? It's really a simple thing, actually. During COVID, they were running out of inventory all the time. All of you know this. You'd go into a supermarket and you'd see empty shelves. So what they did is they overrode the system and they ordered a lot of inventory. And now they've got too much inventory. And like we mentioned earlier on, people are not spending as much. But I still think people are spending. So don't assume that people are not spending too much. And the other one is when you're growing too fast, which I think for a lot of us, that's not an issue. But those are the things that we can do. So now I'm going to discuss some of my pet peeves, or one of my pet peeves with small business is that some of us don't accept credit cards. And we've got all the reasons in the world why we don't do it. We'll say it's hard, it's expensive, or whatever it is. But let me tell you what happened this morning. This morning, I did a webinar for a government client. After the webinar, I sent them my invoice and they paid me immediately off invoice. Now, let me tell you something. If you know anybody that does work with not-for-profits or government organizations, they will take 60 to 90 days or 120 days to pay you. I'm getting my money up front. Why would I not do that? Let's just not even think about the 2 or the 3 or the 2.5% that I'm getting charged when I sell this item to them. The amount of time it would take me, and that's my most valuable asset. the amount of time it would take me to follow up that invoice. Let's say, for example, I gave them 30 days. Okay, so I sent the invoice to them. At 30 days, they don't pay me. I then have to pick up the phone and phone them and say, hi, and I'm telling you, this is the scenario. Hi, my check is not being paid. And my invoice is not being paid. Then they put me through to another department, things like that. I would waste time. So learn from this is accept credit cards in your business. I don't care what you are selling, and put it into your prices. You know what? Now is the opportunity to increase your prices. So if you're going to sell something at $7, sell it at $7.15. If that's going to make you feel more comfortable, but you have to accept credit cards. And one of my most frustrating things is when I go into a small business and they say to me, no, there's a cash machine there. Well, if I wanted a cash machine, I would have gone to a cash machine. So that's a really important thing. The other thing you want to do is you want to improve your inventory returns. I was obsessive as a retailer. To me, money, stock in the storage areas were money on our shelves, and I couldn't afford that. And one of my goals was to really get stock turns. So I developed a just-in-time system. I didn't come up with that word. So just in case you think I'm smart, I didn't come up with that word, but I created a just-in-time system so that we were ordering more often, but we weren't tying up our cash. And that is one of the ways you can do it. There you go. So Tracy says invoicing people through PayPal. Absolutely, Tracy. That is exactly what I'm speaking about, is using a PayPal, Square, any of these systems you have nowadays, or for some of you directly from invoices. I mean, I remember years ago, that was my dream. I mean, I used to work at flea markets for years. That was actually the first business I went into. And I used to always dream about being able to accept credit cards at a flea market. There was no way you could do that. Nowadays, everybody accepts credit cards. I'm always amazed. And if you're not, you're losing a lot of revenue. Really interestingly enough, they've done research on that people that use credit cards spend between 17 and 18% more when they come into your store or go to your online store. So just be aware of that's a big challenge. The other thing you can do is you can liquidate assets. That's something you can do. I find that often in our personal lives and even in our business, we create a bit of clutter, and you want to get rid of stuff and turn that into cash. So those are some of my favorite ways. These others are also ideas, but it depends on the nature of your business. So let's talk about inventory, because I think this is a real big problem, especially for Main Street small businesses and also for people that are running e-commerce businesses. So what are the things that you can do to improve your inventory management? The first thing is monitor your inventory turns. So let me give you an example. You can speak to your accountant about this if you want to, but what your accountant can do is they can work out what your average, you can do it too, you have to have your accountant do it, but some of us are not comfortable with financials. That's why I mentioned that. But what you can do is you can take you can either take your cost of sales or your revenue and then divide by what your average inventory is. So let's use that example. Let's use cost of sales. Let's say last year, my cost of sales for my business was $120,000, okay? And my average inventory at cost was $10,000. That means I got 10 stock turns, okay? So, 10. 120 divided by 10 is 12 stock turns. Geez, I wish my math was better. Anyway, so that is 12 stock turns. So what you want to try and do is you want to get that number up. So, for example, if I do $120,000 and I reduce my inventory to 9,000 or 8,000, what I'm doing is I'm getting my stock turning over faster. And that's what you want to be trying to do, because then it releases cash. And that's really what you wanted to do, is you wanted to release cash. And for some of us, especially in the growth phase, that means maybe, for example, you need to go to the wholesaler more often or things like that. Or you really need to be smart. For example, you've probably heard this before, but it's a simple thing, but a really important thing is if you go shopping at a grocery store with a list, you buy less. You've heard that. And if you haven't heard that, it's true. If you shop with a list, you buy less. It's the same thing in your business, so come up with a plan of doing it. The other one is if you have a POS system, and a lot of you that are in retail will have a POS system, is trying to identify what are your fastest movers and what are your slowest movers. So you can do your Z reading at the end of every day, just print it out, and you can work out exactly which are your fastest moving products. And if something's not selling, maybe just discontinue it. There's nothing worse for me going into a retail store and see inventory lying around. I cannot deal with that. Is a bit of dust on it and things like that. It's just so bad for your image. So you want to get those big inventory turns. You want to get inventory turning. One of the groups in Canada that does a really good job with that is Circle K. Circle K is convenience stores at gas stations and things like that. They do a really, really good job. It's actually the group out of Montreal, Couche-Tard. They're brilliant retailers, actually. I've been involved in retail for years, and I really like the way they do it. So one of the questions here is, should you remove slow movers? Absolutely. I mean, give it a bit of time, but if something's not selling, that's tying up your cash. And that's the way I want you to think about it, So maybe discount it and then get it out of inventory, and then you can replace it with fast moving goods. That's what I would recommend. I mean, that's why businesses, for example, that have slow inventory turns are scary. For example, fashion business, because of COVID, will have a lot of inventory from the last 2 years, which is really stressful, or gift stores or furniture stores and things like that. If you don't manage your inventory well, you're basically screwed. Yeah, JD says slow movers cost money. I agree with him. Give them away as a bonus of the rate of product. Great idea, JD. Use an inventory tracking system. And I mean, you can get fancy and use technology, or you can just use a paper-based system, and I think, again, it really depends on you, but you should have an inventory tracking system. You should be able to, at any time in your business, say to me, Andrew, this is how much inventory I have in my business. And if it's too high, you want to run a promotion. And if it's too low, you want to make sure that you have the right products in your store. It's almost like that magical mix. You don't want to have too much, but also you don't want to have too little. Use just-in-time practices. Buy and ship inventory as close to the sell date as possible. Maybe you can negotiate this with your suppliers. Again, depending on who suppliers are. But, sometimes we will buy a lot out of convenience. And that is a dangerous game for cash flow. Because if you're buying things out of convenience, and if you don't educate your employees about this, they're going to do that. They'll buy because it's inconvenience. And if inventory is not moving, reduce the price and just get it out. All right. So the other thing I'm going to focus on now is, let's say you're running a business and you have a genuine cash flow situation. But your business has got a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential because you're in a fast growing industry or whatever it is. And now you want to try and find sources of funding. The first thing I recommend to all my small business owners is that across Ontario, we've got a great system. We've got a great system of enterprise centers that have some motivated people there that are there to help you. So it doesn't matter where you are in Ontario. It really doesn't matter where you are. There's a center. And I've traveled to most of them, even up to Kenora and Thunder Bay and North Bay and things like that. I'm not sure I've been to all of them, but I've been to most of them, I believe. So, and I recommend you do that. I recommend that you go and find somebody at your local small business center and explain to them some of the challenges you are going through. These people are trained to help you through the process. And I think that is really the key thing. The other thing you want to do is you want to meet with your accountant regularly. I think this is really, really important, especially in these difficult times, because they can help you. They can help you set budgets. They can help you create a cash flow forecast for your business. They can help you monitor the cash in your business. So those are the type of things you want to be doing. So I would build up a relationship with your accountant. In my case, I meet with my accountant every 90 days. Why? We discuss different things. We discuss life. We discuss my financials. We discuss how business is doing. And I found that to work very, very effectively for me. The other one you want to build a relationship is your small business banker at your local bank. They can be really useful. Not always for money, because in Canada, for example, our regular commercial banks are usually asset-based finances. So what they do is you need to have money to be able to invest. Okay, sorry, not money to be able to invest. Geez, I lost my train of thought there. You need to have assets for them to lend you money. So I think it's really, really important. There you go. So JD, let's share the one in Durham. A great center, actually. Teresa runs that center in Durham, and she does a very, very good job. And then find your mentors. You know, I believe that a lot of us are going through some unique challenges as business owners now, and we need people to help us. You know, a lot of us have never been through this before, so we need to be able to deal with this. The other thing is, and maybe this is the solution for some of you, is to find sources of funding. So what I decided to do, and I'm just going to do this over the next few minutes, is to show you what's available. Remember what I said to you, your first resource is this. You go to your small business enterprise center locally, and you speak to one of the advisors. Sorry about that. I needed to sort myself out because I was struggling a bit there. Anyway, so the first thing you want to do is go to your small business center and speak to somebody there. They've got different programs. We've got CFDCs. We've got all those type of things. So that's what you want to be doing. But let me show you other programs that maybe you're not aware of. The government of Canada has a website that you can go onto that lists all the grants that are available to small business. And let me just say something to you. And I think this is very, very good advice, is do not go to a random website. I've had business owners on my programs, and they'll come to me and they'll say, Andrew, you're not going to believe this. I found this website, and they said to me, there's no doubt that I will get money from the government. All I need to do is I need to create a business plan, send it to them, and they'll do the rest. And you know what? I've seen so many scams over the years. There are some legit, honest, upstanding citizens up there, but really at the end of the day, most of this information is available to you on the Government of Canada's website. So why would you pay somebody? Why would you go to an organization to do that? Obviously, there are some unique situations. For example, if you are trying to get some money from research and development and things like that, then you want to use an expert. But generally, you know what? You can find out all this information yourself. Or on the other hand, let's say you don't want to do all the information yourself. Do your research at least yourself. Maybe then approach your small business center, ask them about a program specifically, maybe about this wage subsidy program. Speak to them about it and see what they recommend, because they have the experience. They've been doing it for a while. They know who you should be speaking to, and they're a great resource in all our cities across Ontario. The other one you should check out, which I think is also a good opportunity, is the BDC. So the BDC is a Crown corporation, and here's an example. You can get up to $100,000 online. They make it sound very simple. It's never very simple, but I would go and check it out. Another great organization that's available across Canada is an organization called Futurepreneur. I really like what they do. So they give small business owners loans, and the number changes, so go and check on their website. And more importantly, they offer you a mentor, which I think is really important. So if you're struggling as a business owner, you can deal with that immediately. And then there's another one that a lot of business owners don't know about. This is called the Canadian Small Business Financing Program. It sometimes changes names, which sometimes creates a bit of confusion for me. But they help small businesses that do not have money to get small business loans. So they government-backed small business loans. You can get up to a maximum of $1 million for one borrower, or no more than $350,000 can be used to purchase, to make leasehold improvements. So what I recommend you do after this webinar is you go online, you Google Canada Small Business Financing Program, and then read this article here. That you can borrow up to $1 million. The interest rates are not cheap, but they're also not that expensive. It's prime plus 3, so whatever the prime rate, I think it's CIBC is usually what they say, plus 3%, and that may be the solution for you, but obviously not for everybody. The other big opportunity is obviously the My Main Street program. You heard Chris speak about it earlier on, about that you can apply and participate in this program. You've got your ambassadors on your main street. Reach out to them. They are there to support you and to guide you in the right direction, telling you what's available to you. And then there's another one program that's going to be starting soon for those of you that want to improve your website presence or open an e-commerce store or something like that. There's called Digital Main Street. So there's quite a few programs around, which makes me really, really happy for small businesses that programs like this are available. So the thing that you want to try and determine, first of all, is what is creating the challenge for you? You know, what is creating your cash flow problem? And then once you've identified what is creating your cash flow problem, you then want to address that. And usually the most common things to do is, firstly, and I'm going to share that with you in one of our future webinars, is create a cash flow forecast, update it regularly, put those alerts on your bank account so you know when you're spending money, educate your employees on cash flow so they know exactly what cash flow is. Maybe you don't have to use the word cash flow, but explain to them that they need to manage the money in the business, what they spend, because it has a big impact on the growth of the business in the future. Meet with your small business advisor, your mentor, speak to your Main Street ambassador. They can maybe guide you in the right direction. They can share some resources with you that are available through the My Main Street program. But here's the most important thing. I believe that small businesses play a really, really important part in the growth of small communities across Canada and big communities. And I want you to build a successful business. I do not want you to have a cash flow problem. So I want you to address this. And if you address this, you can create jobs in your community. And that is my wish for every single one of you. That firstly, you realize that cash flow is your problem to manage. And then secondly, you take the steps that you need to take so that long in advance of having a cash flow problem, you've started addressing it. So if it's an inventory issue, you've dealt with it. If it's a money issue, you've gone and raised money through the local banks or these Canada Small Business Financing Program, but you focused on the solution rather than the problem. I think that is the key that you should be focusing on. So Karen says, is there a forecast spreadsheet that you can suggest? Karen, there's so many. I must be honest with you. There are so many. And I think all of us think ours is the best. But if you go to Futurepreneur, they've got quite a good template there, so you can download that. And in future, when I run the webinar on cash flow, I will send you one of mine. But for some people, mine is too simple because I'm not fancy schmancy. I keep things really, really simple. And for some of you, it will really work well. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining me this afternoon. I thought this was really interesting discussion. Thank you for all of those of you that shared your thoughts and your questions and things like that. That was really helpful to get the discussion going and sharing your knowledge. But here's the most important thing. You can build a successful business. Focus on what you need to do to build a successful business. That's what you should be focusing on. Thank you very much, everybody. Hopefully you all enjoyed this event this afternoon and you've learned at least one or two things from me. But here's the key. The key, and I think the most important part of all of this, is get out there and do something. That's what you got to do. You got to take action. Webinars, seminars, training programs only work when you attend something like this, you learn, and then you come back. Next month, I'm going to be discussing financial statements. So we're going to discuss income statements and balance sheets and things like that. It's going to be lots of fun. So if you've got any questions about that, maybe somebody hasn't explained it well to you, that session will be 90 minutes, so longer than this one. Give me more time to share with you, and that'll be in June. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Chris, for managing and hosting this event, and I'll see you next month.